Well, my parents were damaged. My father survived the concentration camp in Poland. He was very damaged. So he taught me the language of survival, his experiences. Don't move your feet, form a human chain, save your energy. He was just abusive, the poor man, because of his experiences. And he married a woman who was a narcissist, and she was just torturous, my mother. This is Dad right here, and his family, his brothers and his mum and dad, and that was in Lodz. This photo was taken when the Jews were herded into the ghettos before they went into the concentration camps. So that is the last photo ever of Dad and his family. My heritage, my history, my lineage. It's grounded to my soul, eternal sadness, what they went through, the annihilation. This piece I wear as a up you to the Nazis. They would turn in their graves to know the Jewish survivors, next generation they bred, the next generation wears this as a sign of contempt for all those Nazis. I used to worry Dad though, because the whole thing to do with religion, but once I explained to him my reason, he understood, and that he accepted. I went into silence as a child to be invisible, to survive, to not be seen, to not be abused. I hung with animals. They were my best friends. They still are. So I spent a lot of time in the back garden taming wildcats, drawing them in. I spent my childhood making, creating, doing things. Death whispered loudly in my ear because my father's family were murdered. My mother always told me that my grandparents were alive, or were dead, sorry. They were alive, but she lied. So from a young child, I knew too much about death, and it had a resonance in my life. All my life I've done art, I've made things, I've created things, I've made things from the minimum and made the maximum. This piece is to do with the death of my father and grieving in isolation, conversation with myself and to my dad. It also goes into Judaism, how it's part of my blood. That's the eye of the storm. Other story in itself, but works in with this show. And it's been silenced is what this piece is about. You're not supposed to speak, but you have to. You can see it in your eyes. Now this piece goes back to, 27 years ago. And religion, lies, deception. Then the sculptural piece is to do with, again, religion. It's like the epiphany. It could be my final piece because once you peel it open, that tin open, there's nothing there. People are worshipping. They might as well just be worshipping an empty can. The soul is religion and spirit. People should be worshipping that. Your heart, your essence, love, connection. Disconnection is where people are sitting in life. It's just wrong. Religion, spirituality, hearts, it's all merged together. I work with all of those constantly in my art. And a self-portrait, the soul, the depth, truth, love, loss of love. That's what it all matters. It's how you live your life. It's how you connect with people. I remember when I was a little girl, my favourite thing was to be down at Dad's boat shed, to spend time with the water, to hang my hands in the water, chase the fish. My favourite things were to be with nature, to be with animals, to take off with the dog and curl up in its belly. Rather than hanging with people, I'd prefer hanging with the company of animals. It gave me stillness. It gave me escape from the plain mundane. It was my element, nature, the water, the animals, the freedom, the space. At school, yeah, I was different. I had my strong network of friends. No one messed with me. I was always a witch, so that created respect, a freedom. No one messed with me because I was always a little witch. I still am. New Orleans. I arrived home. I was going home, I knew it. I found the place I was always supposed to be. I had a ticket, a 5-day stopover in New Orleans. By the 3rd day, I'd thrown that ticket out. I was home. I didn't need to leave. Everything I created, everything I had in my suitcase, got brought up out of my suitcase. I got commissioned to make costumes for the voodoo practitioners, to do taxidermy. That's one of the photos that was used in the Northern Star newspaper, an article on my taxidermy and my work. So that would have been about 96. This was an article in a really tacky commercial magazine when I was 31 about my taxidermy, commissioned to do photography. This was a series to do with anti-commercial modelling. The industry was irritating me and they didn't want a true story. It was quite superficial, but that's the industry. That was all right. So yeah, I was just playing along with that and sort of feeling, again, silenced. I started doing tarot readings in New Orleans, and I never studied the tarot, but the cards taught me, they gave me insight, and I wrote it down and recorded it. It always came about, it was fact, it was fabulous. Every door opened up for me in New Orleans. I had art shows, I did work with different well-known musos. It was just easy, it was fabulous. New Orleans was just alternative. It was a mix of music, it was a mix of magic, it was a mix of art, it was a mix of mysticism, poetry. I fitted right in. It was the town of wolves. It was home, it was brilliant. New Orleans was full of special, fabulous people. I became friends with the author of Wild at Heart, and that was just brilliant. So that opened up journeys. Dr. John, I did pieces for him and photography for him. I was friends with the owner, Charles Gandolfo from the Voodoo Museum. So I had free reign of the museum and the workings and the workshop. So I just did as I pleased. It was just brilliant. Commercial modelling for some agency. This was one of the agencies I was with. So I did commercial modelling. Some of it was more arty stuff. Was a test shoot too for a photographer with his new huge lens. So I was miles away from him doing the modelling, sort of peak hour on Bondi Beach. It was funny, all this commercial work was so different to all the artwork that I did. So I came across looking very conservative and very middle class instead of who I was, which is very bohemian. So it was this kind of opposing world, commercial world. I guess in a way I struggled with it, but it was good for me to do, a good thing to do. Back at Elizabeth Bay, a different photographer, different look, more sort of arty. I mean, that's so 80s. It's very dated. Another slant, another photographer. Bordering on Gothic, I love it. Very 80s. Oh, there goes some photos. Did I slide any in? Oh, here's a few. Another look, another time. Okay. My future is fabulous with my kids. I'm watching them grow and evolve and express themselves and create and nurture that creativity in them. It's just journeys, potentials, future, travels, stillness, beauty. That's my future, my kids.
Yeah, no, when I was about 7 years old, we formed a band called the Beetlebugs in primary school, and we didn't actually play music. We just played the cassette in the background and we pretended to play music just with pretend guitars that we made up out of cardboard. And that was basically my introduction to music, and we won the competition. I think we got a chocolate bar or something like that. After that, when I was about 10 years old, we bought real instruments and we started to learn real guitar, real chords, and we used to jam along, playing really simple music. I think the first song I ever learned on the guitar was Smoke on the Water. Yeah, and we did that for many years, just as friends, just used to get together and jam and just play around, basically learning the instrument. And when we got to about in our mid-teens, we started to get serious about it. We bought ourselves electric instruments and we bought electric amplifiers, and we started jamming with drummers, and we put together a band called Poec, which sounds a bit strange, but that's what it was called, and we did a few gigs. Now, this photo was at a party in 7 Mile Beach, New South Wales, Australia. I think it was a private party. We didn't get paid for it, as always with musicians, or most of the time. You play for the love of it. That's me playing the guitar, and that's a fellow called Ken, and this was a bloke called David, and he died not long after this photo was taken in a car crash, so which was quite sad. With that, and we went into a battle of the bands. Just did friends parties and stuff like that. Really, but it was all about the fun. We had a lot of fun, and we learned to play. You know, took the music to the next level. And then, you know, from there we never stopped jamming. It was always the same group of friends from school. We jammed ever since we were, you know, 7 years old, right up until our till present, you know. And I'm 50 years old, so we're still the same guys, and we still jam together. This photo was at another party, and once again it was a private party, and I think it was an 18th birthday party in a friend of mine's shed in Kiama, New South Wales. Yeah, we had a really good time that night. We played all night. We weren't very good at the time, but you know, everybody had a good time. That's the main thing, and I've actually still got a live recording to that gig, which is interesting to listen to. One of the things that was different I found between myself and my friends, they were happy to play just cover music. You know, Iron Maiden, Black Sabbath, that sort of stuff. We're into the heavy metal scene of the 80s. But I was more into folk music, traditional music, and I had a really strong desire to write music. And so I wrote quite a lot in those days. Some of the songs, my inspirations were, I tried to get past that, just that pop music song. I figured you could make a good song by not necessarily making it, you know, a pop song that you want to sell records, but more as you just want to make a good song and if it's a good song, it'll last the length of time, whether it's a hit or anything like that. You know, I've given up on trying to be a rock star. This guitar here is my most recent guitar. That's a 2017 Fender Stratocaster American Professional Series guitar. That's a very nice guitar. Plays really nice. It's taken all the best of the things in Fender and put them all into one guitar, and I really like the colour scheme on this one too. But I do love my Fenders, and that's one of my Stratocasters. This one here, this is a 1974 Fender American Stratocaster. It was made, it's different slightly because it's got a 3-bolt neck, which makes it quite unique. And I bought this brand new, or off a guy that bought it brand new in England. The signatures on the top was, that's actually the Beach Boys. I was in a chance to meet them one day, and I got them to sign it. So I don't think it increases the value of the guitar, but something, a bit of memorabilia. But I still like to write music that transcends that. You know, I'm not trying to write it for other people. I write it for myself, and if it pleases my ear, then I think that's a good song. If I'm happy with the song, it's a good song as far as I'm concerned. And I don't really care what other people think. Obviously, it helps if people like it, but that's not the reason that I wrote the songs that I wrote. The inspiration for the songs was basically to be as honest as I could be, which is a lot harder than it sounds. If you to write a good song, you've got to say things that are very hard to say, and you have to expose your soul, which can be very intimidating for some people because they might not like you, but that's, to me, is what characterises a truly great song. This photo here was at a wedding, and the live entertainment was this fellow here. I don't know who he is, and he was playing some nice music on the piano accordion, but he wanted someone to get up and sing with him, so I got up and sang with him. It was at a wedding. I'm not sure whose wedding, I can't remember, but I know it was a wedding. That was in Gerringong in New South Wales. This photo here, that's myself, and this fellow was called Mick Thacker, and Mick used to have lots of parties at his house in Kiama, and we used to basically jam all the time. If we weren't jamming, we were drinking. And Mick's a really nice fellow, and we're obviously working something out there. This obviously another shot from the same reel, back when you had reels of film. This is just a random photo. That's a house I used to live in Port Adelaide in South Australia. That house sat in the middle of a giant train yard. So there was all freight trains, big freight yard all the way around it. So we had no neighbours at all, which was really good, I thought. And this is just a random photo. That's me in a wig. And the reason I was wearing a wig was because we were singing the song "Jump in My Car" by Ted Mulray, and there's a girl's part in that song. And so I was singing the girl's part in that song. This is my father, Sid. He's dead now, but he was a jazz drummer, and he loved listening to music and loved to listen to us play, and he always encouraged us to play music and to enjoy it, because he loved it himself. He loved to listen to his music as well. He was a school teacher at Lake Illawarra High School in Lake Illawarra, New South Wales. And I grew up on a farm on the outskirts of a town called Gerringong. We had a really great upbringing. We had the shed in which me and my friends could jam in. There was no, unlike some kids in the city, I'd imagine, that where they have to keep quiet, we could make as much noise as we wanted, pretty much any time of the day or night that we wanted to. So we liked to play loud, and that's how we liked it. And yeah, I had a good upbringing, and we used to play music for a few hours, and then we'd go riding on our motorbikes. This is a photo of me on my Harley Davidson when I first bought my Harley Davidson, which I don't own anymore. Through around the hills in Gerringong, and we'd come back and play more music. And it was just it was a really good time, I thought, and we used to have a lot of parties and lots of drinking and smoking and that sort of thing. But it was, all in all, it was a really good time. We had a lot of fun up on that farm, and it was very private. And yeah, it was inspiration. I think my biggest inspiration would be Bob Dylan. The way he puts the songs together, and he talks about real things. As far as influence go, it'd be Bob Dylan, but also the 80s metal scene was a big influence on me.